A mother knocked on her neighbor's door and never came home. What happened next shocked the entire nation. Stay until the end because this real story will change how you see your own neighborhood forever. What's up, everyone? If you haven't watched The Perfect Neighbor on Netflix yet, you need to stop everything and watch it right now. Hit that subscribe button because today I'm breaking down one of the most powerful and disturbing documentaries of 2025. This isn't fiction, this is real life, and it happened just 2 years ago. The Perfect Neighbor tells the true story of Ajike Owens, a 35-year-old single mother of 4 living in Ocala, Florida. AJ, as everyone called her, was a devoted mom, a restaurant manager, and someone who was deeply loved by her family and community. She was just living her life, raising her kids in what seemed like a normal neighborhood. But on June 2nd, 2023, everything changed in the worst way possible. Her neighbor, 58-year-old Susan Lorincz, shot and killed AJ through a locked door. Let that sink in, a locked door. AJ was standing outside with her 10-year-old son beside her when Susan fired a single bullet through that door, hitting AJ in the chest at close range. She died shortly after at the hospital, leaving behind 4 children who no longer have their mother. What makes this documentary absolutely brilliant and terrifying is how director Geeta Gandbhir tells this story. The entire film is built using real police body camera footage, 911 calls, security camera recordings, and interrogation room videos. There are no actors, no reenactments, no dramatizations. Everything you see actually happened. This won the Directing Award at Sundance Film Festival 2025, and Netflix paid $5 million for the rights. That's how powerful this story is. The documentary shows us that this wasn't a sudden explosion of violence. This was years of tension building up. Susan Lorincz had been calling the police on the neighborhood children for months, maybe even years. She complained about them playing too loudly, about them being in the empty lot next to her apartment, about everything. The body camera footage shows multiple visits from sheriff's deputies responding to her complaints. And every single time, the officers would talk to the kids and the families, and there was never any real problem. The children were just being children, playing outside like kids do. But Susan saw it differently. She positioned herself as the victim. She claimed these children were trespassing, being aggressive, targeting her specifically. The footage reveals a woman who was becoming increasingly hostile and paranoid. Neighbors described her as an anomaly in their community. While everyone else looked out for each other, cared for each other's kids, and lived in harmony, Susan was the one person who couldn't get along with anyone. The tragic night started when Susan threw a roller skate at AJ's 10-year-old son while he was playing. The skate hit the boy in the foot. When the children told their mother what happened, AJ did what any protective parent would do. She went to Susan's door to confront her about throwing things at her child. That's when Susan, instead of opening the door and talking like a reasonable adult, grabbed a gun and fired through the closed, locked door. The 911 calls are absolutely heartbreaking. You hear a child screaming that someone shot his mama. You hear neighbors desperately trying to help, performing CPR while waiting for paramedics. The body camera footage from the responding officers shows the chaos, the grief, the horror of what just happened. And then there's Susan Lorincz, claiming self-defense, saying she feared for her life because AJ was pounding on her door. But here's the thing that makes this case so important and so infuriating. Susan tried to use Florida's Stand Your Ground law to justify killing AJ. Stand Your Ground laws allow people to use deadly force if they believe they're in danger. These laws have been incredibly controversial because they've been used to excuse violence, especially violence against black people. Susan is white, AJ was black, and this case sparked massive national conversation about racism, gun violence, and these dangerous Stand Your Ground laws. The documentary brilliantly exposes how Susan's version of events didn't match the evidence. She claimed AJ was trying to break down her door, that she was in imminent danger. But the physical evidence, the witness statements, everything proved that wasn't true. AJ knocked on the door. She was upset, yes, because this woman had just thrown something at her child. But she never tried to break in, never posed a lethal threat. Susan could have stayed behind her locked door and waited for police. Instead, she chose to kill. Sheriff Billy Woods initially hesitated to arrest Susan because he had to evaluate the Stand Your Ground law. That delay caused outrage. Protesters gathered outside the Marion County Judicial Center demanding justice for AJ. Finally, after reviewing all the evidence, Susan Lorincz was arrested on June 7, 2023, 5 days after she killed AJ. She was charged with manslaughter with a firearm, culpable negligence battery, and 2 counts of assault. The trial happened in August 2024. After just 2 hours of deliberation, an all-white 6-person jury found Susan Lorincz guilty of manslaughter. The prosecutors argued that her actions showed depraved disregard for human life. There was no credible self-defense claim. Sheriff Woods himself said this was a prime example of when stand your ground was not justified. It was simply a killing. On November 25, 2024, Susan Lorincz was sentenced to 25 years in prison. The judge cited the indiscriminate nature of her actions and the trauma she inflicted on AJ's children, who witnessed the aftermath of their mother's murder. As of right now, Susan is serving her sentence at Homestead Correctional Institution in Florida. But this documentary isn't just about the crime and the trial. It's about AJ Owens herself. Through family interviews, photographs, and home videos, we get to know who AJ really was. Her mother, Pamela Diaz, talks about how AJ always said the world would know her name, and now through this documentary, her legacy lives on. AJ was a loving, vibrant mother who protected her children and cared deeply about her community. The Perfect Neighbor forces us to ask uncomfortable questions. How do we live in communities where people like Susan Lorincz exist? How do we protect our children from people who see them as threats just for playing outside? How do we address the racism and fear that lead to tragedies like this? And how do we fix laws that allow people to claim self-defense after killing someone through a locked door? This documentary has a 7.4 rating on IMDb and an 85 on Metascore. Critics are calling it revolutionary because of how it uses surveillance footage to tell this story. There's something incredibly powerful about seeing everything through real cameras, real recordings, with no filter, no Hollywood treatment. You're confronting the raw reality of what happened, and it's devastating. What happened to AJ Owens is not an isolated incident. It's part of a larger pattern of violence in America, of racial prejudice, of gun culture, of laws that value property and perceived threats over human life. The documentary makes you think about your own neighborhood, your own neighbors, and how quickly ordinary disputes can turn deadly when combined with racism, guns, and dangerous legislation. The Perfect Neighbor is streaming on Netflix right now. It's 96 minutes long, and I'm telling you, it's one of the most important documentaries you'll watch this year. It's not easy to watch. It's emotionally intense and deeply disturbing, but it's necessary. AJ Owens deserves to be remembered. Her children deserve justice, and we all need to understand how this happened so we can prevent it from happening again. So if you care about true crime, social justice, or understanding the America we're living in right now, you need to watch this documentary. Make sure to like this video, subscribe to the channel, and hit that notification bell. Drop a comment telling me what you thought about this case and what we can do to create change. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you in the next video.